The epic Beowulf is basically about one man coming to another man's rescue. You have King Hrothgar, who is the king of the Danes, and he built a mead hall called the Heorot, which is translated as the Hall of the Heart. It's a mead hall for feasts and drinks and meetings with the king and the warriors, and it's a place to give out treasure rewards. Well, sometimes the warriors would, after the feast and stuff, would fall asleep there. Grendel is a giant who has a deep, deep hatred for the Danes, and he would hear them celebrating. So at night, when the warriors were asleep, Grendel the giant would come out, and he would very easily just walk into the mead hall and see the warriors sleeping, and he would kill them. He would literally just bite the skin off their legs straight down to the bone, like you and I would a chicken leg or something. And he would kill 30 men and throw them in his satchel that he carried over his shoulder and take them home with him if he wanted to eat. And this would continue until eventually the Danes would stop sleeping in the mead hall. But he haunted the Danes for 12 years. Well, the Geatish warrior Beowulf heard of this, and he wanted to help the Danes. So Beowulf set sail with 14 of his most trusted warriors to go to the Danes to help them. When Beowulf gets to the Danes' land, he lets King Hrothgar know of his intentions of helping them. The king is very excited that someone has came to their rescue. There is one Dane warrior named Unferth who really doubts his intentions. He tells Beowulf that he's naive for thinking that he could just come in and kill this giant like it was just an ordinary battle. But Beowulf basically tells him, to have no fear, that he will get it done. And so one night they have a feast, and the Danes people go home. The Beowulf and his warriors stay in the mead hall and pretend to be asleep. True as the past, Grendel comes into the mead hall. He sees Beowulf and his warriors asleep. He grabs the closest one to him, and he literally, just rips his body to pieces and feasts on him. And then Grendel goes up to Beowulf, thinking he's asleep, but Beowulf isn't asleep. So as soon as Grendel grabs him, Beowulf struggles with him and fights him. This scares Grendel, and he tries to flee, but Beowulf ends up ripping his whole arm off, shoulder and all. And this is how Grendel gets away, and he flees. Beowulf doesn't run after him because he knows Grendel's going to die just from sheer blood loss. So the next morning, when the Danes and King Hrothgar see that Beowulf has killed Grendel, they celebrate. They even hang his arm, shoulder, and all from the ceiling of the mead hall, just to celebrate the victory. But little did they know that Grendel's mom found out about him being killed, and this infuriates her. So after their celebration, she comes in to the mead hall while the men are sleeping, and she sees her son's arm just hanging from the ceiling, and she's filled with sorrow and rage. And so she grabs the arm off of the ceiling. This wakes the Danes warriors up. She leaves, but not before grabbing the closest warrior to her, which happens to be King Hrothgar's closest friend. And she kills him, and she takes him with her, just like Grendel would have took the bag of 30 men with him. King Hrothgar is filled with such sorrow that he once again has to tell Beowulf that they're in danger. And he lets Beowulf know that Grendel's mom has came back to seek revenge. And he lets him know about his closest friend being killed by her. Beowulf once again comes to the aid of the Danes, and he lets the king know that he will do all that he can to track her down and kill her just like he did Grendel. So Beowulf and his 14 men, plus the king and some of his warriors, including Unferth, which originally doubted Beowulf, they set on this treacherous and dangerous journey through the forest to get to Grendel's mother's lair, which they found by tales of other townspeople that she had an underwater cave. So then they come to the sea area where it said that she's at, and Beowulf can see the sea monsters in there and the rapid currents and stuff. Beowulf lets all the other warriors know that because of his armor, his chain-linked armor and stuff, that he knows that the sea monsters will not be able to get him. So he tells the other warriors to stay at shore and wait on him. So Beowulf sinks and sinks and sinks to the bottom of the sea, and finally his foot hits the earth, and he walks the bottom of the sea until he sees this underwater cave, which water is not in, that he's able to breathe in. There's air and no water. So he goes into the cave, and there he sees Grendel's mom, and he actually sees Grendel's deceased body laying there. So Beowulf starts fighting with Grendel's mom, and right before he left, Unferth gave him his own sword as a token, as I guess his support. And he says that this sword, which he calls Herring, has never failed any warrior in all the wars that it's been in. Well, Beowulf tries to stab Grendel's mom with this sword, and have you know it, that the sword wouldn't, break her skin. And if this sword was ever going to fail, this was the worst time to fail. And to Beowulf's surprise, Grendel's mom was a lot stronger than Beowulf was. But thankfully, Beowulf happens to see a giant sword back in the cave that he knew that other giants have had to build or forge for them to fight with. Beowulf gets the giant sword and stabs her through the bottom of her neck, and according to the myth, it breaks the bone and comes out through the top of her head, and this is how he kills her. But not before Beowulf leaves. He decapitates Grendel's dead body to take the head with him. According to the myth, this battle with Grendel's mom took over 8 hours, and from all the carnage and stuff, blood starts, mixing with the seawater and bubbling up. Well, with the warriors at shore, the Danes people just knew that Beowulf died and lost, so they actually left, and they went back to Dane, and they went to the mead hall to mourn the death of Beowulf. But the Geatish warriors, which are Beowulf's warriors, would not leave the shores. They stayed there praying that Beowulf was okay. And so when Beowulf did surface the water with Grendel's decapitated head and the giant sword, of course, they were so excited, and they once again took the treacherous and dangerous path through the forest very carefully back to the Danes' mead hall. And to the Danes and King Hrothgar's surprise and excitement that Beowulf was alive, and he killed the mom, and he had the giant sword and Grendel's decapitated head to prove he was victorious. They threw yet another feast for him. King Hrothgar let Beowulf know that he wasn't only his friend, that he considered him a son, and Beowulf's future generations would never ever have to worry about any kind of wealth or riches as long as he was alive. Beowulf's descendants were taken care of. So Beowulf goes home. And this saddens King Hrothgar. He wanted Beowulf to stay. He probably wanted him to stay. So if they were in any other trouble, Beowulf could handle it. Beowulf returns home, and he lets his uncle, who is the king, and his uncle's name is Hygelac, know of his victorious battles with the giants. He even gives Hygelac all the treasure and the riches that King Hrothgar gave him for defeating the giants. Eventually, his uncle, who is king, dies, so that makes Beowulf the king. And Beowulf reigns for 50 years. And it seems like everything's okay until there's a fire-breathing serpent, according to the myth, and I pictured this to be a dragon. A dragon is in this cave and is protecting all this treasure that the dragon found. According to the myth, the dragon loved the treasure so much that before it went to sleep and woke up every single day, it counted each piece of the treasure. And it knew exactly what was there and how many of it was there. Well, one night, a thief saw the dragon sleeping and stole one of the golden cups. And when the dragon woke up and saw that the golden cup was missing, this, of course, made the dragon mad. And the dragon was able to sniff out the thief's scent to the Geatish land. And that night, the dragon flew over the Geatish land and breathed fire down upon the Geatish village, even burning down the Geatish mead hall. Well, Beowulf, being the brave protector that he is, he gets 11 warriors, including his own nephew, Wiglaf, to come with him to fight the dragon. Beowulf tells all of his warriors to stay at the forest edge while he goes to the opening of the cave to taunt the dragon, to get the dragon to come out and fight him. Myth says that the dragon was so furious that when it roared, the earth shook beneath Beowulf's feet. Beowulf's sword was not able to penetrate the dragon's scales. Every time the dragon breathed fire on him, the fire would melt Beowulf's iron shields. And when Beowulf's warriors saw this, they got scared and they tried to flee, all except Beowulf's nephew, Wiglaf. And Wiglaf let them all know that they were cowards and that was not the Geatish way, that they were supposed to go down there and help their king, even if that meant welcoming death. So Wiglaf goes down to help Beowulf, and together they wound the dragon and kill it, but not before the dragon bites Beowulf on the neck, which causes poison to toxin his body, and he dies. But, of course, he dies after they kill the dragon, in which this leads Wiglaf to become king now, because Wiglaf is the only blood descendant from Beowulf. And sure enough, here comes those 10 other warriors to look over Beowulf's dead body and weep, and they probably felt guilty. But as King Wiglaf let them know what a disgrace they were to the Geatish warriors, and how they were to surrender all their armor and all their weapons, and they were supposed to surrender their lands and homes, and not only the warriors but their families had to flee the Geatish land, and that he would make sure that all of the villages near and far would know what cowards they were, and that if they would have done their duty, that King Beowulf would still be alive. They have a fire burial for Beowulf. I picture it kind of like if you ever seen the movie Troy. He puts his body on wood, sets it on fire. According to the myth, they believe that the fumes and the smoke from Beowulf's body would descend his spirit up to heaven. This is really all that the myth is. I think this is kind of like a David and Goliath thing. Beowulf is a simple man, but because he was brave and he wanted to help and protect people, he took down not just one, but 2 giants all on his own, and he died defeating a dragon to save his people. If I pronounced anything wrong, please forgive me. I did it the best way that I could. Also, please forgive me for this being